Hello, sixth grade. All right. Today in reading, we are going to talk about making predictions in stories. So let's get into it. Now, predictions in real life. A prediction is an educated guess about something that may happen in the future. We make predictions all the time, sometimes without realizing it. A prediction is always based on some kind of evidence. There's always some reason that we predict something will happen. Maybe it's based on current events. Because we're playing well, we'll have a good season, is something that we might think. That's just one example. It could be based on past events. So let's look at another example. If I failed my test after not studying last time, then I will this time. So we look at the past, didn't study last time, failed the test, and we guess that the same thing will probably happen in the future. Okay, we could base it on how we believe people act. She always gets chocolate cake, so she will again. If we've got a friend who always does something the same way, then we can guess that in the future they'll follow that same pattern. God's word is a great reason for us to predict something will happen. The Messiah will be born in Bethlehem. This was a prediction made in Micah 5:2, and it came true, as we all know. Jesus was born in Bethlehem. Lastly, there are other things that people depend on to make their predictions that are not as great as all of these things, because they're not proven to work. Someone might say, the stars say I'll find a cookie today, but basing your predictions on things like horoscopes or fortune tellers or something like that, that's not really something that's super reliable that we can depend on. Okay, so this is how we make predictions in real life. Let's talk about making predictions in reading. What we predict will happen in a story based on what happens previously in that story. When we read, we often make a lot of predictions without realizing it. Take a look at some of these phrases right now and tell me if you've ever thought them before. Have you ever thought, I bet this character is going to die in a story? Or have you thought, the butler probably did it? Or have you thought, this story is going to have a happy ending? These are all tiny little predictions that we make as we go about reading a story. Okay, so let's talk about how to make a good prediction that may very well come true. What helps us make these predictions? Well, there's a few different ways that we can sort of guess what will happen in the future. One is knowing what a character did in the past. If we know how a character acted before, we can probably guess how they'll act in the future. Another is seeing the secret thoughts or actions of a character. If we are reading a story from the third person point of view, which is where the narrator tells us about the thoughts and actions of multiple characters, then we might see a thought or an action or word from one character that would suggest they're going to do something. Knowing popular tropes. Now, trope is a vocab word that we're going to talk about in a little bit, so I'll save that for later. And then knowing the author's style. If we know how an author generally ends their stories or what sort of events they like to have take place in their books, then we can guess how their story is going to go in the future, in this current book of theirs that we might be reading. Alright, let's talk about that first one. Knowing what a character did in the past. So, let's look at an example. We're going to pretend that a character named Jim has a history of betraying his close friends because of his love of music. Okay, so do you promise you'll come to my birthday party, Jim? Asked Nick. I know you wanted to go to that concert on the same day. Of course, bud, I wouldn't miss it, replied Jim. Maybe I'll be able to go to that concert and leave early enough to make it back in time for Nick's party, he thought to himself. Yeah, that should work. Okay, so this is a short little piece of a story, a made-up story, where we are going to use what we know about Jim's past to predict what he'll do in the future. So do you think he will be able to make it back in time for Nick's party? Before you make that prediction, let's talk about how to word your prediction. It's a pretty simple formula. All you have to do is start with the word because, and then insert a reason or example for your prediction here, and then write, I think that, and then insert your prediction. Excuse me. So let me show you what that looks like in real life. My prediction would be, because Jim has let Nick down before, I think that he will probably stay too long at the concert and miss Nick's birthday party. So I start with because, and then I give my reason. Jim let Nick down before. And then I write I think, and I give my prediction. I think he will probably stay too long at the concert and miss Nick's birthday party. So it's a pretty simple formula. Okay. Seeing the secret thoughts or actions of a character. This was our second way that we can make a prediction. Let's imagine there's a queen who's asking her advisor if she thinks it is wise to go fight alongside her troops. Okay. What do you think? Will it be safe for me to go into battle with them? The queen asked, looking out her window to the peaceful fields below. Of course, your majesty, replied the advisor. What could go wrong? She bowed low to the queen, and as her face was hidden from view, gave a wicked grin. Alright, this prediction might seem obvious, but I'm going to give you my idea. I wrote since, now notice I switched because out with the word since, because they mean basically the same thing. Okay, since the advisor gave a wicked smile, I predict that she will probably set up a trap for the queen. Notice here I replaced the words I think with I predict. That's okay as well. My reasoning for believing this prediction is that the advisor gave a wicked smile, something that the queen could not see. And then the prediction, of course, she'll probably do something evil like set up a trap for the queen. Okay, let's move on to our next one. Knowing popular tropes. Okay, we've got to talk about tropes. Now, a trope is a device, a theme, or a plot element that is common or overused often in storytelling. Here's some examples. Maybe you're familiar with this one. In a story, the villain is about to defeat the hero, but stops to monologue or give a speech and is defeated. I'm sure you've read a story or watched a movie or TV show where the villain does just this same thing. They're on the verge of completing their evil plan, and the hero has been defeated, but right when they're about to push the button or pull the lever or flip the switch to, take over the world, they stop to give a big speech about how smart they are and how they got to success with their plan, and the hero uses that time to blow up this big machine or otherwise defeat the villain. That comes up a lot in media and stories. Here's another one. The main male and female characters fall in love. This is a very, very popular trope. It happens in a lot of stories. Some people think that this is overused and happens too much. Some people like it a lot and see it as just something that is common. It's up to you to decide if you think it's overused or not. And the last one, there's many, many more tropes. There's hundreds of tropes, but the last one we're going to talk about today is when somebody in a story dies, but then they come back to life, or it turns out they survived. So maybe this character goes into a big explosion and everyone thinks, oh no, they died in the explosion. But then right at the last minute, at the end of the story, this character pops back up and reveals that they didn't die in the explosion. They dodged out of the way, or maybe they just got stuck in the hospital for a long time and didn't tell anyone. Okay, let's look at an example of this in action. So, in this next scene I'm going to have you take a look at, a superhero is trying to keep a supervillain from destroying the moon. Oh man. Okay. Lady Laser fell to the ground exhausted as Dr. Explosion cackled in his robot suit of armor. He reached over to the lever, which would fire the moon-destroying laser, but paused. Mwah! Ha ha, he laughed. I bet you're wondering how I discovered your weakness, Lady Laser. Let me tell you, it wasn't easy. Dr. Explosion lowered his hand away from the lever, a smug look on his face. And we can guess he's about to start his speech. So, right now, just in your head, what do you think is going to happen next? I'll give you my prediction. Okay. Because I know it is a popular trope for authors to have the supervillain monologue before they complete their plan, I think that Lady Laser will wait until Dr. Explosion is distracted by his speech before blowing up the moon-destroying laser. Okay, notice I used because and I think in this prediction, and I've got my reason here, and then I've got my prediction here. So, let's move on to our final way that we can make a prediction. If we know the author's style. So let's imagine that in her past books, this author is always ending her stories with a happy ending, where the good guys win. So let's take a look at this made-up scene. "You really thought you could become captain of the team, Mark?" asked Tim, his eyes full of smug superiority. "I was the one who changed your grades to Fs. I was the one who told the principal that you broke the jaguar statue." Mark glared at Tim. He felt himself shaking with anger, but felt unable to do anything to prove his innocence. Who would believe him? "When will you learn, Mark? I'm the king of this school," Tim spat. Okay, so we've got the bad guy and the good guy here. Tim is the jerk. Mark is the one who seems to be the hero. What do you think is going to happen? I will tell you my prediction right now. Since I know that this author's books usually end happily, I think that someone will discover that Tim framed Mark and that Mark will become captain of the team. Once again, I use since and I think, and I give my reason and then my prediction. Alright, so let's review really quick. What helps us make predictions in reading? Well, knowing what a character did in the past, seeing the secret thoughts or actions of a character, knowing popular tropes, and knowing the author's style. These are 4 ways for us to make predictions in reading. How do we word a prediction, though? We start with because, and then insert the reason or example, and then we finish up with I think that, and then insert our prediction after that. Okay, I would like you guys to take a run at this. So, let us imagine that a character, Carl, is famously clumsy. Okay, I said. So Vanessa is bringing over the cake. John has the party favors. Alex is going to pick up plates and silverware. Savannah is in charge of the music. I peered down at my checklist. There was 1 spot left. Wait, so who's bringing over that $500 ice sculpture? Tim averted his gaze and shifted his feet. Was he sweating? Come on, Tim, tell her, Jenny urged, giving Tim a little push. Tim cowered. Carl's bringing the sculpture. My clipboard clattered to the floor. Carl? I asked, my voice a horrified whisper. Go ahead and in Edpuzzle, write out your prediction for what you think is going to happen next. Remember, make sure it starts with the word because, and then it gives a reason, and then it says, I think, and then it gives your prediction. Alright? Alright, thank you very much for your time, 6th grade. Remember, tomorrow, Friday, is going to be a day for you to catch up on anything you didn't have time to finish. And then we'll be back again with more reading on next week. Alright, talk to you later.